welcome to another episode of the SD4L show. I'm Justin Thind. I'm here with my co-host Matt Sheehan. Matt, it's been a couple
Let's
weeks. How you been?
Let's go. I'm fired up to be here. Jonathan Smith has the train rolling in the transfer portal. Basketball going a lot better than other programs can say in this state. So, JT, I am quite peachy right now. And Justin, let me spin it to you right now. And before I even ask you the question, my wife says hello, by the way, before I hopped in the studio. She said, hey, tell JT I said hi. Like, that will blow him away. He has no idea what you even look like. But, okay, so you have at least one fan out there, JT.
At least we know that someone's watching the show now.
And I have to pay her to do so. But, yeah, like someone out there certainly does watch.
Either way, we appreciate the paid viewer and hello back.
A view is a view. Now, with that said, JT, how you doing, man? We doing okay over there? How are you?
No one
ever cares to ask you.
Yeah, man. No one's asked me since the 9 or so days since we've done the last podcast. So with that said about the portal and all of that and how that's going, I'm honestly kind of surprised that we're still having news to cover, and I'm very fortunate and kind of glad that that's the case. With the portal obviously closing in terms of kids entering, kids can still decide and make commitments when they're in there. But I didn't know that so many guys would kind of continue to be brought in. Right now in the scholarship chart that I kind of have, I think I have them at 88 or 89 scholarships.
Okay.
I don't know if I actually updated that today after the Wayne Matthews commitment, but I think 88 or 89. So very, very busy portal season for him so far. Going to be busy in the spring as well. So another coach that they're going to be hiring to fill out the staff. So I'm glad that it hasn't slowed down yet.
No, I mean, it gives us something to talk about, something to look forward to. And there's been some time since we last talked, JT. So let's go through everything that has happened in and out of the transfer portal since the last time we recorded here. And then we're going to go back, talk about these kids, what position group is strongest, all that good stuff. So Charles Brantley withdraws his name from the portal. He is back at MSU, as with Maverick Hansen as well. He pulled his name out of the portal, or I guess he was never in the portal. He just announced that he is returning to Michigan State, is how we will word that. Defensive end Chris Bogle, he withdraws his name from the transfer portal. And then here are your transfers. North Dakota transfer quarterback Tommy Schuster to Michigan State. Oregon State transfer Tanner Miller to Michigan State. Texas A&M quarterback Tony Grimes to Michigan State. Western Michigan punter Carson Voss commits to Michigan State. Georgia Tech defensive tackle DeQuan Dowse commits to Michigan State. And then Old Dominion linebacker Wayne Matthews III commits to Michigan State. That information courtesy of Spartans Illustrated, by the way. So as I'm reading that list, go ahead and subscribe to the fine folks over there. But yes, no boring days here in East Lansing. And there is one more I do have to add. Jacoby Windman, not in the portal, not going to another school, not coming to Michigan State, unfortunately off to the, he's going off to the NFL. Sad for us fans like me, but for him, go chase your dreams, young man. Let's get that bread. So that's the other piece of news as well.
Yeah, and it was good to change in the column of departures, Jacoby Windman's column next to it, going from portal to graduated. I think that is fortunate, even setting aside the positivity that it gives for
that's
Jacoby.
The spirit. That's the spirit. I like that.
It's good spin. So a lot of pickups here in the last several days. They've done a great job of, as we've covered in the past, of getting guys that are all going to contribute right now. In the spring, we'll see if they take flyers. Not opposed to that, but like I said, the last staff was taking flyers as early as they were taking guys that they thought were going to start. And then if a kid entered 3 weeks later that was starting quality at a position you already took a flyer at, that didn't necessarily help the roster kind of make up. So these guys have made sure every single kid they've taken so far is a confirmed sort of a concrete surefire contributor or two deep kind of a guy. Obviously, Thomas Schuster, you're hoping that Aiden Childs doesn't get hurt and you don't need to go to him. But I guess kind of just starting with him, Matt, you and I had talked a lot on the show over like messaging and just kind of talking about like what kind of a quarterback could they get? Could they convince to come and be a backup here? You were, at least from, I guess I'll speak for myself. I was not expecting that they would have someone this polished come in. What were you thinking before they got Thomas Schuster?
The names I had circled were the two names, and these are just examples. These weren't like the surefire guys, but guys like Carlos Davis. Now, who is he? No one has any idea who that is, at least in their right mind should know who that is. He was from Temple. He has a 5th year of eligibility. Hey, he didn't really start all the games last year, but come here, Power 5 team, ride the bench behind Aiden Childs, or a guy like Joey Yellen, someone who was a starter at Hawaii for the first 4 games, lost their spot, but a guy that's been in college for 4 or 5 years. Come on over, at least end with a Power 5 team, even as a backup. Get yourself some nice NIL money. Get yourself some sweet sideline gear. But someone like that, someone that's been here for 3-4 years in the college game, whether it be FCS, Group of 5, or just a career backup in Power 5, and then come here to Michigan State. Looks like they got that with the FCS level, but not a backup, certainly. How about a record smasher over at North Dakota? Most passing yards, most touchdowns, highest completion percentage. They made the FCS playoffs every year he was there before he even showed up to North Dakota. Only 1 playoff appearance, so this kid was the real deal at FCS. Now, with that said, still fully expect him to be the backup to Aiden Childs, but that's nice because, whoo boy, I mean, God forbid if Aiden Childs gets dinged up in a game, I'm very happy with the 2 true freshmen that we do have in this class, but I'm never comfortable just flipping the keys over to a true freshman, JT. I don't think that's a hot take necessarily either. So nice to get experience in the quarterback room.
That was good analysis and all, Matt, but you forgot the most important bullet point about Thomas.
Oh, lay it on me.
He represents Macomb County. Macomb
Valley.
Let's put on the map. That's right.
Stand up.
That's right. Waited so many years, I guess 3.5 years of covering MSU recruiting to finally have cover a kid who played high school ball within like a 3 to 5 minute drive of my house. And yet it ended up being a portal kid who I didn't get to actually go and cover in person. So we'll take it. We'll take half of the victory there. But yeah, for those that don't know, I went to high school at the International Academy of Macomb, which is shared, like it literally shares the building as Chippewa. So
gotcha.
I'm claiming this win for the hometown, and hopefully, well, like you said, hopefully Aiden Childs stays healthy and all that. But I don't know. There's some local pride here. But yeah, I think this is a better quarterback than I was expecting them to get for sure. All those things you said about the record-breaking passing yardage, touchdowns, completion percentage. This is as good of a backup as you could hope for, and I think they were lucky that Tommy obviously had MSU kind of influences growing up in the state of Michigan, and that helped get this done. So that was great to see. Who kind of sticks out to you next, Matt, out of all these options that we can talk about from the portal?
I hate to be prisoner of the moment, but I'd love to talk about the guy that committed today out of Old Dominion to complete the Messiah DeWeaver trade with the Monarchs, may I add. Let's not let that storyline just fly out the window here. But Wayne Matthews III commits to Michigan State, linebacker, 3-year player for Old Dominion. So this guy is seasoned. He had the 11th most tackles in the nation last year. But also why I want to talk about this guy is that his pass coverage grade per PFF was an 89.3. That is 11th best amongst linebackers in the FBS, not just Group of 5, but all of FBS. So no, it's not just us, just throwing you a bunch of green and white smoke at you and saying, hey, just love this kid blindly. The ball knowers, the ball lovers at PFF are also very high on this kid as well. And what did we and many other fan bases, not just Michigan State fans, but other fan bases around the country just plead for in the transfer portal? It's a coverage linebacker. Because everyone needs a pass coverage linebacker, but they're very far and few between to find in the college game. A lot easier to say it than to actually do it. My goodness gracious, they found themselves a dandy of a one in the transfer portal here out of Old Dominion.
That's very well said, especially the point about how it's harder in the college game. Because if you look at a lot of the good, unless you're talking about like a Fred Warner or somebody that's just always been kind of on another level, a lot of even the good coverage linebackers in the NFL are guys that played safety in college and that when they got to the NFL, they became converted to linebacker. Like it's not easy for you to find guys that are athletic and big and tough and can fit the run and go ahead and cover in space. So there's not a lot of them. It's a hot commodity anytime there is one. And Michigan State did a great job locking down Wayne Matthews. Even after he gave a verbal commitment to Michigan State, other schools like Coach Prime and some other P5 schools were after him as well. So with that all said, I think he's going to be like kind of a surefire starter eventually, if not right away. I guess it depends on what the staff thinks they have in Cal Haladay and Jordan Hall and Jordan Turner from Wisconsin. But to me, he's the best coverage linebacker by far out of the 3. So even if for some reason he's not one of the starting 3 or early in the season, he eventually is going to make the field because you're going to eventually kind of get sick of Cal Haladay losing his guy on like a lot of routes that shouldn't be losing his guy on. And Jordan Hall looked good last year, but a lot of that coverage kind of compliments that he got was because it was in comparison to Cal. So I think he's a good Mike linebacker, but again, I don't know if you want him running sideline to sideline. And then Jordan Turner, to be honest, I think he's not necessarily a great coverage linebacker either. He's just another good run stopping kind of linebacker. You could say he's a better version of Cal Halladay, which you'll take the better version of anybody that's on this roster. But like he's the one guy that's different from all the rest of these guys. He has his own mold, his own skill set.
Right.
So I don't want to make any predictions about the depth chart, but I have a hard time seeing that eventually he wouldn't be a starter, if not on day one.
And with how much Rossi moves around his formations and schemes, it's all fluid. So it's only starter by definition. I mean, it's all matchup and situation dependent too, especially under Rossi. I mean, so that's just one I had to point out right off the top. And I mean, if you just want me to keep scaling backwards here, I mean, we got to go to the guy earlier in the week out of Georgia Tech, Daquan Dowse. That's another instant impact guy. PFF has him as highly rated as the fourth best interior defensive lineman in the nation, which holy crap, how did this guy get available in the transfer portal? But a very nice pickup for Michigan State. And there is one observation that I just want to throw out there, and please check me if you think I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
But we'll see. I'm wrong many a times in my life, but it's not the biggest difference, but a difference I see with this staff and how they're handling the transfer portal and the last staff is that I feel like the last staff, they were building based on frame, physicality, and like numbers. Guys like Dre Butler, Jarrett Jack, and guys that just, hey.
No, it was Jarrett Jackson. Jarrett Jack was the Cleveland Cavaliers' long-time
Jarrett Jackson. That's right. The guy that looked like he was 47 years old. That's right. God, shoot. Thanks. You know what? And that's not even what I was afraid of being wrong on too. So here we go. We're just keep on rolling in this. Jarrett Jackson. So guys that were, 6'6", you like had the build of a really good defensive tackle, but just didn't have the numbers or production quite there yet. Whereas we have guys like Wayne Matthews from Old Dominion on the smaller frame for a linebacker, or Georgia Tech defensive tackle Daquan Dowse. You're probably wondering, okay, if he's so good, why isn't he just off to the NFL? He's only a 6'1", 6'2" guy. It's not like he's this hulking presence. So they're going with more production and proof in the pudding than they are, okay, you have the frame, let's see if we can mold you into something in our 1 year that you have here. I already got Jarrett Jackson's name wrong. I should have stuck with my gut and just went with the first one. But am I wrong twice here with this, or are you seeing the same thing with stuff?
I think that's a great take, because there's a lot of guys you especially see in college basketball, right? Like the 6'1" point guard that is probably never going to be fast enough to make up for his lack of height, that stays for 4 years and plays in college, where not everyone on your team that you take in has to be a pro potential guy. Not everyone has to be someone that NFL scouts are running to your pro day to go ahead and pick up. Some guy's going to have his 2 years of training camp kind of duty and then go make an impact in like the corporate world. And Mel Tucker and those guys, I think they were trying to focus on the draft record and being like an NFL pro factory more so than necessarily just taking guys that can win you games right away. And you can do both. Like James Franklin, I know everyone laughs at him for kind of being a fraud and kind of having a glass ceiling, but he's found a way to win 10 games most years and still put a lot of guys in the league. So it's not like it's a crazy unrealistic thing for non-blue bloods to do, but they just didn't really hit on them. But these guys, they're just, hey, let's get the guys that can make the most impact for us while they're wearing our colors, and that's all we care about. And I think that was definitely a good analysis on your part.
Hey, you know what? I got to start pulling my weight here every once in a while. So yeah.
Can we now talk about numbers? Can we now talk about DJ Augustine and Jeff Teague and some other?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can get some Charlie Villanueva talk here in a hot second. But first, I'm just hijacking this whole show. I'm just making this about like my interest and everything, because the next one I want to talk about of this list of the guys in the last few weeks that transferred here is the one I'm most excited about, and it comes from the least sexy position on the field, right? Offensive line, because Tanner Miller from Oregon State. This is another guy where, okay, he doesn't have like the frame of an NFL draft pick. He's a little on the shorter side, but dang it, in college, if it works, it just works. So here we are, Tanner Miller, interior offensive lineman, giving this unit a blessing of his talents, which, by the way, as you already know, ESPN's second team All-American. He was an AP midseason All-American too. This guy is going to be a benefit to this team. That I'm comfortable saying. I mean, there's some guys who's like, oh yeah, maybe they start. this guy's going to be instant impact, which is
right.
Got me fired up.
Definitely. And one thing I wanted to mention about Daquan Dowse, because all I did was agree with your assessment and compliment you, but I didn't add any insight. He had his best games against the best teams on his schedule.
Yeah.
Georgia, North Carolina, Ole Miss. Those are his 3 best games this year. Ole Miss and Georgia were top 10 teams in the postseason AP poll. He completely showed up in all those games. I think 8 tackles against Georgia. Don't have the stats for the other 2 in my head, but he was very good against those teams. So much so that I believe he had 38 tackles this year off the top of my head, and 22 of them were from those 3 games. So again, you have to kind of wonder, like, all right, why was the production not as high in the other games?
Right.
Is it because he was like bored, like mailing it in, or was it fatigue? He was playing so many snaps because he was their best defensive tackle. So those questions I don't have answers to, but hey, I'll take a guy that can get you 8 tackles from the interior defensive line against Georgia any day of the week and figure out the rest later. Because, and again, like if let's say like he's your 3rd best defensive tackle behind Harmon and Barrow, then the pressure on him, the snap count on him, the ability to recharge, those are all going to help him be even better. So very excited with that pickup. Just wanted to add that tidbit. Tanner Miller, just like your analysis with not necessarily caring about frame and just caring about production. He's a 6'1" center. I know like interior offensive lineman, played right guard for them this year, but also had previous experience at center. I know the lazy take is comparing every undersized offensive lineman to Jason Kelce and how, Kelce was a tight end when he got to Cincinnati. And then he was underrated in the NFL draft because he was a small center. And now he's all pro every single year. I get not everyone's Jason Kelce. Tanner Miller is probably not going to be Jason Kelce. But the fact of the matter is if a kid has evaluative tape that you can look at and say he's good no matter what his measurables are, and he's better than just good, like you said, AP midseason All-American, ESPN second-team All-American, Pac-12 second team. When you have a kid like that, and let's say, a nose tackle in a 3 technique or in a 3-4 defense gives him trouble, right? Kelce all the time, like he admits it on his podcast, like he plays a Vita Vea, right? And he kind of gets schooled occasionally. But the other 90% of the snaps in the season, he dominates guys that are even close to the size profile that normal traditional defensive tackles are. And if Tanner Miller can do that, just a home run pickup here, because you have like your right tackle spot with Ethan Boyd, I think pretty much shored up. I think Gino Vandermark at right guard is shored up. I think Tanner Miller is going to be your center. That's pretty much shored up. Then I guess maybe left guard, maybe a Chris Phillips. We'll see maybe if they get someone else there, maybe if it's somebody else on the roster. And then left tackle, like maybe Ashton Lepo, maybe Brandon Baldwin, maybe Luke Newman from the portal that they're still in on. So I think you have some pieces here. I don't think the offensive line is going to be a lot better than last year because a lot of the names I just said are familiar. And then Tanner Miller's coming in there and Duplain's gone, and we'll see what happens at left tackle. But I think that's as good of a pickup as they've had this offseason. Obviously, Aiden Childs plays the most important position, but I think this was as good of a pickup as they could have gotten.
And there's one more transfer that I want to talk about. And then I'm going to ask you, which was the hardest transfer for Michigan State to get when you factor in other schools going after them, other interests. But before we get to that, we do have to talk about Tony Grimes here, former 5-star. Of course, he was a 3-year starter at North Carolina, went to Texas A&M, did not take a single snap for the Aggies. He had injuries, and not just the injuries, but it was also cited that the swelling, even after the injury, healed, was limiting his mobility, is what I read in a few articles. So point blank did not play for A&M last year.
Right.
He comes here maybe as a quarterback. We might be pumping the brakes on that one. Is that to be correct? Or
I think there's some kind of like inconsistency with like admissions or something like that, and they're trying to work through it. We'll see what happens. But like he is committed to Michigan State. If he goes elsewhere, it's only going to be because of kind of something on that administrative side. No like wavering of interest. It's just, is he going to be able to come here? Or is he not going to be able to? We'll see more on that. But he was a standout player at North Carolina. He was a top 20 player coming out of high school as a 5-star. He never lived up to that. I believe he was never more than all ACC honorable mention, even when he was at North Carolina, but he started consistently. He had a lot of pass deflections, I think 20 pass deflections. He was a 3-year starter there. He's a guy that if you look at him and you compare him to all the other portal corner pickups they've had, the Amir Speeds, the Chester Kimbroughs, the Ronald Williams, the Marquis Lowrys, like those guys were all projection based. I know Amir Speed had won the job coming into the season, but then kind of lost it after he got hurt to Keely Ringo. But like a lot of that was projection. This was not projection. It's just, hey, did that injury heal? If so, then you're looking at a guy that at least can be a rotational corner. I don't think he's going to be like a surefire starter. I think Rucker and Tatum on the outside were going to be fairly competitive. Maybe Charles Brantley. So if he comes here, I don't think he should be like a surefire starter in anyone's mind, but he's definitely going to be a better contributor than all the other corners they've gotten in the Mel Tucker era.
I got a question because I was wondering, okay, let's say you throw Grimes out there opposite of Rucker, okay? Or, regardless, Tatum maybe goes into that nickel corner.
I would like that. I would like that.
Maybe that's a possibility when you get a guy like Grimes, but again, it's not going to be like that 5-star. Two things can be true. You can be very excited about the Grimes pickup, and also he's not going to be this 5-star, first day or day 2 draft. But he can still be a solid player overall. So
for sure.
If that bumps Tatum back to the inside, though.
I would like that. I don't know how Tatum would feel about that. I haven't asked him that, but I know he likes to hit, so I'm assuming that he'd like that. Because like in college, like the nickel position is not the same as like slot corner in the NFL, where like you'd seen guys like Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie make a career out of just being the most quick, twitchy corner on the team. So they just put him on the inside to guard the speedy slot receiver. That's not how it really is in college. It's more the guy that can help and run support. If it would have been like the traditional NFL slot corner profile, maybe you'd think a Charles Brantley would be someone that would play a nickel, but that's not really how it kind of is done in college. So that would be interesting. I would be in favor of that kind of a move if Grimes comes here, if he's good enough to start.
Yeah, so I know that was a nice combination of like celebrating Grimes and also being like, like pump the brakes, and then like he might not even be here because we hired the University of Michigan's admissions person to run our organization for some reason, but I digress. Just keep an eye on that.
Right. Yeah. But if you even like think about like if you zoom out and like if people are like, all right, they're kind of lukewarm on Grimes, and I guess I'm kind of lukewarm on Jordan Turner as well. And if you're looking at this and comparing it to like previous portal classes, and they're like, all right, let's say that those two are just average, but they're like rotational guys and they definitely play and maybe start. Think about this floor versus the floor of any previous portal class that they've had.
That's a great
call. It's night and day compared to saying, all right, Jordan Turner's good, but he's kind of the Cal Holiday mold and he can't help a ton in coverage. Versus, this guy's like not going to play any games. He's going to just waste a lot of snaps and like a Tunmise Adelaide kind of situation, or I guess guys that were far less productive that I could have named instead. So definitely a night and day shift.
I hear you. So of the guys that we just talked about, is there any that you were really impressed that Michigan State won the talents of here?
Yeah, one was impressive, but not because of, I guess, what Michigan State necessarily did, but kind of because of the kid's approach. So Tanner Miller, Florida State had reached out to him right when he entered the portal. And they said, we'd really like you to come down here. We're going to be able to give you a lot of resources, a lot of NIL. Definitely come out here. And I think their general manager used to work for Oregon State in a recruiting capacity. So there was some familiarity there too. And Tanner not only did not have interest in taking an official visit there, he also didn't even have any interest in engaging on numbers or any of that. And it was because his relationship with Coach M, Michigan State's offensive line coach Jim Misalchek, superseded anything like that. And he kind of basically said, and Silas Bolden as well, and actually even another transfer guy, his name is escaping me, but the Oregon State defensive end that just quit to Florida State. All three of those guys had said, and now we found that one of them was not necessarily sticking to that, but all three of them had said, if I go away from the West Coast, it'll only be for Michigan State. And it looks like Silas Bolden will probably be staying on the West Coast. Sione something, last name is escaping me, the defensive end that went to Florida State. So he was the one that didn't end up sticking to that sentiment because he committed to Florida State today. Even though I heard this morning in Michigan State had heard that he was going to go to USC. So that's an L on me. So, and then Tanner Miller was the same token. He said, either I'm staying on the West Coast or I'm going to Michigan State, and money's not going to incentivize me. So those were the three guys that said that, and they went ahead and they landed Miller, and he didn't even show kind of any sort of interest to Florida State.
So that's all that said. what is next for Michigan State here at the transfer portal? I know that you said like they're already in the high 80s for scholarship allotment. Things are going to change here in the spring, but what is the next step? Is there still another position that they absolutely positively have to fill, or do you have a pulse on that?
I would say that they need to continue to get bodies at a lot of positions, but I don't think they need to get starters necessarily at many positions. Maybe left tackle if you think that Ashton Lepo is still one more year away, or Stanton
Gotcha.
Ramel is still one more year away. And if you don't like Baldwin's immediate kind of like if you want him to battle with somebody else, you don't like who his immediate competitors would be if those two others aren't. So like a Newman, who I mentioned. And then maybe at guard, you want to see if you can bring in someone that can compete with Big Dooley. If maybe Gavin Brosha still needs another year, and I know he just came off of the knee surgery, but he looks stronger and faster. So those are the only like starting spots where I think they should get somebody. I would continue to look for coverage linebacker in the spring. Like I would not be content with the coverage linebacker situation at all. I think defensive tackle, they're mostly good. I guess especially like if Dowse is DT3, or I guess the first DT off the bench, so in the second rotation, and Maverick Hansen's there. Hopefully Alex Van Sumer's like healed from the ACL injury. You're probably at 5 there if I'm not missing someone. You want 6, definitely, so that you will always have 2 full rotations up until maybe a third guy gets injured on you on the year. And maybe you want 3 rotations as a whole. So I'd take one more flyer DT, like just a guy maybe with 2-3 years of eligibility that can be a body. And then maybe a best available at pretty much any position on the entire roster except maybe quarterback and maybe running back. And then maybe another defensive end as well. Because like you have Bogle coming back. We'll see about Zion Young. Probably not. But you don't have guy, and then like obviously Jalen Thompson flashed at the end of the year. You have Bai Jobe, you have Andrew DePape. Like you don't have a lot of guys that are proven commodities. So I'd like a proven commodity there. But kind of just running through the roster, those are the positions that come to mind. And hey, maybe if there's a guy that's a really good corner that you think would be an upgrade, a tangible upgrade over these guys, why not get a shutdown corner if you can, if you have the means.
Sure. So with both sides of the ball here, this is probably a hard question. I'll let you be the judge of this. What position group has seen their stock rise the most ever since the transfer portal opened? Or I guess you could just say since December 1st, ever since, let's say, when Jonathan Smith took over here. Is there one position group that you're feeling a lot better about now than you were about 6-7 weeks ago?
Quarterback.
That's a good one. Yeah. Going from 0 guys to
linebacker does not have the varied skill sets that I would want, but the room as a whole was wildly thin when they got here, and it's not as thin anymore. Defensive tackle, like especially if you're giving the date of December 1st, which I believe like by then Harmon was in the portal. And then there was rumors that Barrow might be entering, and then you were not sure about like if they would even be able to get someone as good as like a Jarrett Jackson or a Dre Butler like last year, and Dowse is definitely better than those guys. So that's come a long way. So those positions definitely stick out. But yeah, like quarterback, like obviously Aiden Childs is the guy there, but like even the backup quarterback spot, I didn't know if they'd be able to get a guy like that, like Schuster. And then they got 2 freshmen. Both those guys look like they have great tape. Obviously, everyone looks good on the highlights because it's their best plays, and I admittedly haven't seen the full games from any of these guys, but I like what they look like at their best, and that does speak to their ceiling. So all 4 of those quarterbacks, we'll see. Obviously, they're not all gonna be here a few years from now. Maybe Childs has 2 good years and goes to the NFL, or even if not, gone in 3 years, and one of those 2 freshmen most likely would transfer based on how the odds go, but I like the options that they've given themselves here, and I think that they can hit on at least a couple of them.
And I got to go with the offensive line here because, Lord knows the listeners know that I was brought near to tears just when we were looking at the outlook for the offensive line room, because was it great shakes last fall? No, not at all. But when everyone starts to leave, it's like, oh my God, like we don't have anything right now. But Jonathan Smith, he brings back some talent already on this team. Guys like Gino Vandermark, Boyd, Baldwin, Phillips. So that was nice. And then adding on the inside Tanner Miller too. And then, hey, maybe even Luke Newman, the Holy Cross transfer, FCS All-American. That would be the cherry on top. So going from, holy crap, we got to replace 9 guys from the offensive line room last year. Aiden Childs is really fun, But who's going to block for him to,
Right.
okay, you can actually see like a 2D forming with some talent on the front line. Like, okay, cool. So that's why I got to go with offensive line here.
That's a good point as well.
Hey, thanks, man. I'm just trying my best today. Now, we do have to get to some breaking news here, and we're going to help Michigan State through these waters here, JT. Louisiana big times us, which, like, what the hell? Like, how does that even happen? Like, that the Group of Five school tells a Power Five school that, nah, we're going to cancel this game coming up in a few months here, which, in the world of scheduling games, a few months might as well be 11:59 p.m. when you got the due date of midnight. Like, this is very short notice here for Michigan State. Not good. So September 14th, that's the week 3 game, sandwiched between at Maryland and then at Boston College.
Yep.
We need a date, JT. And just like I said, a lot of these schedules are already formed years in advance, so it's hard to find a school. But let's go shopping. What are we going to do here for our boys?
So there's 2 kind of ways that they can approach this. They can approach this as, let's go ahead and absolutely take the easiest road possible. We have a first-year head coach. Let's make sure that he gets to a bowl game no matter what. You already have an away Power 5 game scheduled in Boston College. Let's just go ahead, leave it at that. That can be their one kind of challenging game they play. Tom Herman coming to town in week 1 is also no joke. So just schedule an FCS school and call it a day. The other option would be, hey, let's kind of surprise some people and show them we are way ahead of the rebuild. Let's schedule another Power 5 team. I don't know which ones would have a slot open. I don't know necessarily how feasible that is. That's not really my forte. I would assume it would be very difficult to go that route. But even if it's not, I would prefer that they go the first route anyway if they want to build this right. You don't really have an incentive on playing a harder team. I get the argument that now that there's an expanded playoff, you can afford to lose an extra game, but just don't lose an extra game. That would be ideal.
Right.
Yeah. So Matt, let me ask you, setting aside the rational side that I just said there, if you could just choose any game, you'd have to worry about sort of how feasible it is or who else they're playing that week, any of that. If you could choose any game for Michigan State to play this year, who would you choose just from a fantasy world perspective?
Like entertainment, like I want the crowd to be entertained standpoint. There's only one school that I have in mind, and we're going to fly all the way across the country to Corvallis, Oregon, to take on the Oregon State Beavers. Yeah, we run. We do not walk. We run into that grind to, look, I feel sick for Oregon State fans. This is for like the 6 accounts on Twitter that are just a little too annoying, and for the 7th week in a row are still dragging out all their crying about Jonathan Smith and still talking about Michigan State constantly. Like, okay, as if we didn't make your life bad enough, you 7 loudmouths over there. We're just going to buzzsaw what's ever left of your Beaver team out there and just make it an unholy bloodbath here at Spartan Stadium. So that's what I would do if like money and scheduling didn't exist. But JT, since it does exist and we need to find an opponent, I would like to schedule Western Michigan's cross-country team for week 3. I want the worst opponent possible. Like, I'm not going to put on this facade of saying like, oh, iron sharpens iron, it's early season, let's build up the boys with a hard team, anyone, anywhere, anytime. Like, no. No, there's enough of that during the season. Okay, there is plenty of tough teams. All right, give me, and hey, if you listen to the other show I do, Locked on Spartans, you've already heard where I'm going to go with this next. JT, there is a team out there that is in the FCS ranks that does not have a schedule right now. I don't know how that works. Everyone else in their conference seems to have a schedule. They do not have a schedule right now. Delaware State. Not even the ones with the winged helmets that Joe Flacco used to play for. I'm not even talking about that Delaware. I'm talking about Delaware State, 1-10 last year. They are atrocious. Bring them in for a date, Spartan Stadium, beat them by 9,000 points, but also give them a check for $1.3 million or something like that, because this is a program that is in dire need. They have former players going out to the media pleading, begging for any shred of support. And JT, Delaware State hasn't gotten a Power 5 check since 2017 when West Virginia played them. All that they have is just a whole lot of nothing. But we are going to be their white knight in the night and give them some payday, some dough, some cheddar, if you will, JT, and also a nice 79-3 win to pack them up on their way. So really, we're scratching each other's backs. We're going to support their program for the next few years with this nice check, and they're going to come in here to kind of just lay down and be the sacrificial lamb for us at Spartan Stadium. So that's it.
For reference for how this game could go, Penn State played regular Delaware, the Blue Hens.
Oh boy.
And they beat them 63-7. Now you're not even talking about the regular one. You're talking about the one that is like the lower version of Delaware.
The JV Delaware, right?
Yes, JV Delaware. Yeah. So I would like to see it. That I would like to see.